So the other day I made a video discussing the recent allegations against Vivziepop. I'll have that video linked below, but for a quick synopsis, an ex-Spindlehorse employee, Aaron Frost, came out with a Tumblr post calling out Vivziepop and Spindlehorse, accusing both of malpractice. This blew up on Twitter and led to a lot of drama. Recently a bunch of Helluva staff members came out in support of Vivzie, so I'm going to cover all of that now. Like I said in yesterday's video, Vivzie is innocent before proven guilty, and do not harass anyone that is mentioned in this video. It's just to highlight both sides of these stories, because there's a major part of this controversy that has developed into people altering what was originally said and spinning it for attention. So yesterday's drama led to Vivziepop trending on Twitter. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to read out each tweet, and then after I'll give my thoughts on the new info. The first tweet we have is from Sam Haft, who does music for both Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. Sam tweeted, "Ultimately, the only people who know what's real is the Spindlehorse animation team, but I can tell you that depictions of Viv as some kind of cunny, greeting manipulator are hilarious. She's got the demeanor of a literal baby lamb, and repeatedly let shit slide that I'd never. She's been a cash cow for all the talent she's worked with, and I've seen these people turn cruel and dishonest the instant they're worried they won't be able to milk anything else out of her. If that's what this is or isn't, I couldn't tell you, but it wouldn't be the first time. Anyway, as a big time advocate of labour power, here are some things that are not actually signs of an abusive workplace. 1. Being fired when you're not doing a good job. 2. Some people at the job having pre-existing friendships. 3. Not getting an explanation why you weren't hired. And here are versions of these things that are labour abuse. 1. Being fired for no reason. 2. Favouritism based on race, sexuality or gender. 3. Not being hired due to disability or identity. Keep an eye on that and protect your fellow workers. It didn't happen here though. Anyway, it's just a bummer that several people would breach non-disclosure agreements to pull back the curtain and reveal super normal / mundane work experiences. I think lots of people romanticize working on their favourite show and becoming besties with its creator, and are devastated when it doesn't occur. I've also now seen receipts firsthand. A fan replied talking about the stress of running a studio, and Sam replied with, "As long as I've worked on it, it's been a voluntary work structure. Team members literally choose how many shots they want to work on. I imagine someone young and inexperienced might try to take on too much shit and burn themselves out, but it's not for management demanding crunch." Another user replied and got it confused between Sam Miller and Sam Haft, who are two different people. Sam Haft replied by saying, "I literally was not. You're thinking of Sam Miller. He is, to my knowledge, one of her best friends in the world. I'm not surprised this team member didn't feel treated as nicely as her best friend, because she was not her best friend." Another user replies saying they are believing the accusations, to which Sam responds by saying, "Don't blame you, I definitely believe it too if I didn't have the specific exposure that I have to the company and its inner workings, its producers and its decision making processes. Nothing wrong with being vigilant about abuses of creative labour, I just don't think it's here." The user responds, to which Sam says, "I'm not silencing anyone, I'm just showing more context. This is a good example of something that people don't really know that created a false sense of, oh, the animators get crunched by the producers. Everyone literally chooses how much to work and it pays over market." One more fan replies saying that Vivzie should respond to the entire drama, to which Sam responds by saying, "I think establishing that she needs to stop everything and drop receipts every time people say something shitty about her would mean she spends every day doing that for the rest of time, so I understand not establishing the precedent." Morgana Ignis, who's the voice actor for Sally Mae in Helluva Boss, replied to Sam and said, "Vouch, I've been working professionally in the industry for a decade now, for dozens and dozens of producers, and nobody has cared more about and worked harder in the trenches with her crew than Viv, period." Nicole Rodriguez, who works on Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel as an artist, also replied by saying, "I don't know what this is about, but I agree, Viv is great." Mauricio Gomez, who is one of the 2D cleanup animators for Helluva Boss, quote retweeted Sam Haft's post and said, "No one is forced to overwork, we literally get to choose how much seconds we want to animate. Everyone in Spindlehorse has been super nice to me, including Vivian." Adam Naylan, who is a writer for both shows, made a thread of tweets. He said, "Viv is a wonderful, thoughtful and considerate person. I think this is important to say. When concerns are brought to us, we take them very seriously, and when we see a legitimate problem, we address it, fix it and learn from it. For the last 2 years, the studio has been in a constant state of improving in every facet of its function. I was specifically brought on a year and a half ago to address any issues or gaps in the studio structure. This was important as at the time every lead artist was doing the work of 3 or more people, with no production help of any kind. It's important to know that the studio was built from scratch by a collective of people who were artists first and foremost, and learned to run a studio as they went. The road hasn't always been smooth, but this studio is a labour of love and dedication, with people at the head that care about it and its crew more than anything. Miscommunications and misunderstandings can happen, and we always seek to solve them where we can, but the idea that Viv is anything other than caring, kind, compassionate, patient and understanding to a fault is a misunderstanding at best, or a blatant fabrication at worst. No one takes the team's concerns more seriously than her, or takes the thought of one of her artists having a bad experience harder. Having said that, Vivz is a human who has bad days like everyone else and makes mistakes like everyone else. To any employee, past or present, if you have a concern about the studio, we want to hear it. We want to continue in our journey of improvement and being a solution solution to the many problems in the industry, so feel free to message me, my DMs are open. Ashley Caballero, who does character design and animation for Helluva Boss, said, I'm one of the animators who worked on Hazbin Hotel in the first and second season of Helluva Boss, and the experiences I had with Viv and the team were really positive. I've never had any problem, so I don't know what this person is talking about. Camilla Gonzalez, who's an animator on Helluva Boss, said, I wasn't going to comment because it's not my place to do it, but I'm confused about the Spindlehorse allegations. I've literally been given the choice of how much work I want to put in the plate per month, so overworking is definitely something I haven't experienced on my side. Also, gotta be honest, I'm not particularly a fan of these shows, but I got hired regardless, and I've grown to appreciate Helluva Boss specifically because the leads have treated me very nicely. Granted, I've been working on season 2 for almost half a year, but in that time I haven't seen any kind of shit talking once in the crew server. Everyone keeps communication almost strictly work related, and I'm also completely free to pick up any side gigs since it's an indie studio. You can't possibly expect them to offer a proper contract in the first place that forbids you to do so. That's my 2 cents. Running an indie studio and project is not an easy task, and I'm sure any indie studio gets the short end of things due to how poor the standards have been set by big studios and their higher ups. That being said, I don't know how things might have been done during season 1 production or the pilot. I'm sure it might have had its hardships, and no one comes out unscathed building something from scratch, and it sucks, but I hope everyone is being responsible before commenting stuff. Michael Ryoko is an animator and storyboarder who did work on the Hazbin pilot and series. He said, working with Viv and her team, both on the pilot and the series, was an absolute dream compared to most industry and studio production jobs I've ever worked at. Viv is patient, kind, and more empathetic than you could ever possibly expect from anyone else in her position. He followed up by saying, in the 10 years I've worked in animation, at major studios mind you, none of them give me the sense of freedom, security, encouragement, and appreciation, both as an animator and a person, that she has at every step. Empathy on a professional scale is worth its weight in gold. Horror Freak, who is an animator on Helluva Boss, said, as an animator member at both Spindlehorse and Helluva Boss, in my experience, I've never gotten overworked or anything close to a bad working environment. This is my first industry job and I love every second of it. I'm not sure about my co-workers, but for me, it's good. I'd love to say more, but this isn't my place to talk about this, and I hope everyone involved are okay. I know nothing about my experiences on working for Helluva Boss. We also have some tweets from Monica Franco, who voiced Vaggie in the Hazbin Hotel pilot. She tweeted, not sure what's happening, but Viv is incredible, hardworking, and one of the sweetest, generous, and most kind-hearted people I know. She cares about her friends and staff like you wouldn't fucking believe, and if you think any differently, let's get into an actual fist fight. She also replied to a fan saying, well, as someone who's worked for Viv and is friends with the staff, no one is being mistreated or underpaid, so if those are the allegations, they are lying. I don't know why, but it's creepy and psychotic. She literally wouldn't hurt a fly. So those are all the tweets of the artists and workers defending Vivzie and giving their thoughts. A number of Twitter users responded to these tweets, which led to a few exchanges. The first exchange is pretty brain dead, but basically a user criticized Vivzie in the replies of one of Vivzie's older tweets. A user replied asking for proof, to which the person said, literally everywhere. This exchange made me laugh, like you can't just make a statement and when someone asks for proof you dodge the question. Another user replies by saying, okay, but like show links, I'm not going to take statements thrown on the internet and treat it as evidence. The user replies by saying Vivzie has a history of bullying. They then say that the voice actor for Angel Dust and Alistair quit due to mistreatment. Sam Haft replies by saying this is a lie, with Morgana Ignis responding as well, vouching and saying it's a lie as well. Morgana disproves this user's lie by saying that Ed Bosco still works for Spindlehorse, with them having recently done a Helluva Boss stream with him. Sam Haft responds saying, some people say shit and it's like, source, I made it up, and then 1,000 other people are like, source, the person who made shit up. I definitely agree with what Sam says here. I've seen it countless times on Twitter, but people will say something with absolutely no proof at all, and like in that recent reply, they'll tell the person to go and do their own research. The worst one I saw was someone calling Vivzie a pedophile with zero proof. The user calling out Vivzie then responds by saying they don't have to justify not supporting Viv and that they're wasting time. Morgana bodies them by saying they're spreading easily disproven bullshit to stir up drama. Morgana posts an image featuring a bunch of Helluva Boss characters that Ed Bosco voices. She makes a point that if Ed was mistreated while working for Hazbin Hotel, why would he come back to voice characters in a show made by the same people? The user just has absolutely no way to cope at this point, and the argument ends. Basically, the situation was person spreads misinformation, friends and workers on the show disprove the information, and then the user proceeds to double down and refuse that they're in the wrong. One of the tweets yesterday that was used against Vivziepop was one of a YouTuber called Joe saying how they didn't receive payment for working on the Hazbin Hotel pilot as the voice of the Egg Minions. This was a year ago, but it was found that Joe had agreed to voice them without pay. So basically Joe had agreed to do it for free, and then once the Hazbin pilot was in Twitter drama, he pulled the rug out under the team by making a tweet saying he wasn't paid so he could farm Twitter likes. This is obviously a bit disingenuous. Another image I included yesterday of a Twitter artist called Cass saying they had to keep their mouth shut due to mob mentality. It was exposed today that they didn't actually work on the show. In the past, they submitted a storyboard test when Vivzie was looking for animators and they didn't receive a response back. This annoyed them and they posted their frustrations when Joe made his tweets a while ago. Sam Miller DM'd Cass at the time and apologised for them being ghosted, and Sam said she can talk to Vivzie about paying Cass if they wanted them to. Fast forward to the 22nd, where a user did a thread about Aaron Frost's Tumblr post. Cass responded to this by saying that a crew member rushed to message them to avoid backlash. When users rightfully asked Cass for proof, Cass posted the 2 images of Sam's exchange along with a tweet longer providing a bit of context. I'm going to be real, Cass didn't have any reason to come forward. As I shown in the images, the situation was just a small misunderstanding. Sam Miller was very polite by reaching out to Cass and offering to pay them. Cass didn't post any more images of the DMs, so they're abruptly cut off. We don't know if they got paid. However, Sam reaching out was the right thing to do. It looked like the situation was over. However, Cass dug it up again on the 22nd for no apparent reason. I genuinely don't know why they felt the need to bring it up again. The situation was resolved. Cass said in a reply that they never once said they worked for Spindlehorse or the team. Although this is true, their tweet is worded horribly. The original reply gives off the impression that they worked for the team when they didn't. It's totally understandable why myself and others thought they worked for Spindlehorse. Sam Haft mentioned the situation in another one of his replies, with him also saying not to dogpile anyone, which was great to see. The situation again shows how important it is to not make call-out posts unless you have sufficient evidence. Getting involved in random drama for no good reason never has a good outcome. One more Twitter user came out and wrote a tweet longer about their experience working on the show and running the official Angel Dust Hasbin Hotel Instagram account. The tweet longer is worded in an informal way, which makes it a bit tough to read. However, I will summarize it. It's also important to mention that this tweet longer is just colloquial venting. There isn't any screenshots or evidence, so we have to take it with a grain of salt. Firstly, they mention how they were hired to work on Helluva Boss and did some prop background work. They then go on to say how they ran the Angel Dust Hasbin Hotel Instagram account. They didn't explain how they ended up running the account, which is a bit of a letdown. If they'd explained how they managed to get that position, I feel like it would have provided additional context to the situation. They then say that the Cherry Bomb Instagram account was ran by a friend of theirs. It was also deleted because they didn't work at Spindle. They then provide some of their thoughts on the team members. They also document the time where they were let go. They said the reason was probably multiple things, with the main one being them making a tweet about how people need to stop shipping Stolas and Octavia. They said it was unprofessional and they were kicked off the account and Discord server without warning at 4 AM. They say that Sam apparently told people that Kaz had to quit when they were actually fired. They describe how allegedly they thought Kaz tried to sneak their OC into the show. They also mention that this is their first time working at a studio, so they're bound to make mistakes. They then go on to say how Sam is mean and lied to them. Sam was the one who took the account off them and allegedly said that they would bring them back, while in private saying to another person that they wouldn't bring Kaz back. They then talk about how them being shy and not joining calls often or messaging people was another reason for them to dislike them. They then summarise the tweet longer by mentioning how members of the team didn't like that they talked about Hasbin instead of Helluva. The OC sneak-in situation, combined with members thinking their props character designs were lackluster because they weren't interested in Helluva. They said how people had a negative view and thought they only wanted to talk to the higher-ups, like only Viv, Sam and anyone who had a higher status. For my thoughts on this post, I think the overall message is there, but there's a couple flaws. The fact that there's no screenshots or evidence hinders the post a lot. There's absolutely no context. The majority of the bit longer is based on second-hand info, but without the screenshots or evidence we have no idea what's going on. Obviously it's a bit difficult to collect screenshots now since they're no longer in the Spindlehorse server, but there should surely be some evidence they could add. The writing of the post also makes it difficult to read. I understand that they are venting, however this tweet longer is being released during a drama where people's livelihoods are at stake. Wording the post correctly and providing evidence is the least you could do to help people understand the situation better. As for the rest of the post, if it's true, it's pretty sad to see. From the writings it seems they were treated poorly, and I think the main issue with this was Spindlehorse's hiring process. From other Twitter posts and callouts, it seems apparent that they hire fans often. This on its own is not inherently bad. However, hiring an artist to do prop work and then bringing them on later to run an Instagram account is obviously a terrible idea. Having them create art for the account is a great idea and they should be paid accordingly. However, from personal experience I can tell you that social media management isn't an easy job. Managing accounts with millions of followers is difficult, so you need someone with experience in specifically managing social media accounts. Kaz doesn't provide any more elaboration on the process of how they were hired, but they mention how their friend was brought on as well to run the Cherry Bomb account. This just reiterates my point that the process of selecting people to run the accounts was pretty bad. This led to drama with the accounts, especially the Octavia one, and led to people running the accounts being let go. As for my thoughts on the entire situation, I think it's just another case of Twitter drama exploding out of control. I've seen it happen countless times before, but it's really easy for bandwagons to start, and that's why I specifically said in my last video that Vivzie and the team are innocent until proven guilty. I have seen tweets digging up stuff Vivzie has done years ago, and it's just tiring to cover at this point. I genuinely think this drama is finished. I think the drama genuinely could have been sorted if some of the people coming out had just reached out to members of the team and explained their grievances. This could have led to things working out amicably, rather than this entire bomb side of a drama. I don't really think Vivzie needs to, or even will, respond. beyond. She's currently on break, and I think it was a really smart decision. Websites like Twitter can be really draining, so I hope she is able to come back after a well-deserved break. Regarding the drama, Vivzie's friends and members of the team have came out in support of her. Without any proper evidence, it's basically just down to she said versus he said. You can believe whoever you want, but I wanted to present these new sides and explain the context of the situation a bit better for people who weren't aware. I saw a lot of misinformation being spread on Twitter, and it was good to see members of the team debunking some of it and shedding more light on some of the inner workings at Spindlehorse. Let me know your thoughts down below. If anything more happens, I'll be sure to cover it, but at this point I think it's finished. If you want to keep up to date on everything, be sure to join my Discord server. I'll have it linked below. I'd also like to thank a couple members of my server for keeping me updated on the drama. Special thanks to Iox for helping with the video, and credit to some of the members of KB Farms for compiling some of the images I used as well. Thanks for watching, bye.